On Monday, there's going to be a total eclipse, as you've probably seen in the news. And I mentioned this in my predictions in 2017, for 2017, that I made in September 2016. And I just want to say a few short things about the eclipse and what it means astrologically. And can we deduce anything from this in terms of predictions and so forth? Well, it's going to be on Monday, August the 21st, 2017, and this is going to be the first solar eclipse we've seen since 1918 to go from coast to coast in the USA. This happens when the new moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, so blocking out the Earth's rays from reaching the Earth, the Sun's rays from reaching the Earth. So the shadow, it's known as the umbra, and it passes over the USA from west to east, with the darkest spot called the path of totality. That's where it gets really dark. And there will be a 72% totality over New York and an 81% totality over Washington. So, you know, this is quite significant in terms of people's reactions, of course, because the eclipses have always been something that people kind of fear, you know, right from earlier times. So what does this actually mean from the standpoint of astrology? The people most affected by eclipses are supposed to be the rulers, the kings, the emperors and so forth, because they were considered as being like the sun. You know, like the Sun King they used to call Louis, didn't they? But this is an idea that goes back a long way. The king, the ruler, is the sun. And when the moon eclipses the sun, this is, of course, a dangerous thing for the ruler. The ruler's power is temporarily taken away. And this goes right the way back to the earliest times. The ancient Chinese were interested in this. The Babylonians were interested in this. And this represented, you know, a dangerous time. And, in fact, what they used to do is they used to put a temporary king on the throne during the period of the eclipse. That's why they predicted it. So they knew the eclipse was coming for a short time. Some Muggins was the king, and he would take the full wrath of the gods if there was anything bad negativity, bad karma to come to the king. That was going to happen during the eclipse. Okay, so that type of thing actually affects us through history. But what about today? You know, would our rulers today be affected by the eclipse? Well, the effect was often upon the country upon where the eclipse falls and where the total eclipse falls. And of course, this time round, it's America. So the problem would be for the leaders of the world, and particularly the leaders of America, that would be under duress during the time of the eclipse. So Donald Trump maybe ought to get himself a substitute Mr. Trump to put in power for a short period of time during that eclipse to safeguard his presidency. So we overfear, I think, a bit with this whole eclipse idea, you know, because there's eclipses happening all the time around the Earth. You know, it's just this time it happens to be a very special one, in that a dark shadow goes across places like Washington and New York and so forth. So in my 2017 predictions I made in September 2016, I predicted that at this time there's going to be some economic fallout at the time of the eclipse. Now, it hasn't happened yet. You know, I might be completely wrong with this, but I still get the feeling that there's going to be a bit of a drop in the stock exchange just around the time of the eclipse, or just after. The eclipse period is usually 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the eclipse. So during that time, I feel that's a time I think we're going to get some economic changes. Interestingly, there are some interesting comparisons between this eclipse and an eclipse that happened at a similar time, same planetary positions, and the Vedic astrologers in India have picked up on this, showing that there's very similar planetary alignments now at this eclipse as happened when the same sort of eclipse fell over Paris in the French Revolution. Right, so this alignment of planets, this alignment of eclipse at the same time with this alignment of planets, instead of this time being Paris, France, we've got it over places like Washington. They don't have the full eclipse there, but they have a very high level of the eclipse in Washington. So could this be a symbol of revolution? perhaps, you know. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be a full-on revolution in America, but there is, at this particular point in time, many echoes of the American Civil War, aren't there? Though we've got street protests about the statues and so forth of the slave owners and so forth, you know. So you know, there is already tensions in the air, and there could be, I think, over this period a lot more social unrest and division between America. And this was something that I predicted again in my earlier predictions in 2016 for this year, saying that there would be a great divide in America and a great kind of almost I saw street battles, and they're kind of happening, aren't they? So a difficult time, I think, for America, but fortunately that eclipse does not last very long. From a personal point of view, they say an eclipse period is not a good time for ending or starting new projects. It affects all the star signs, so it's probably better to wait maybe 2 weeks after the eclipse before you start any big projects, and you know, try to finish things now before the eclipse effect starts to get upon us. So from a now, if I was talking about the economic things as well, from the standpoint of the eclipse, my feeling is that if any currency is going to be affected by this, because that's what I was picking up earlier in the year, you might remember if you follow my blog, I think it would be the dollar this time that would have the problems. So there might be some problems with the American dollar. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of problems ahead with the euro, as it's probably going to be pretty obvious soon that, but the dollar might take a bit of a tumble for a while shortly. All right, so watch your investments. Anyway, that's some ideas. But, you know, I mean, there are other people talking out there about, you know, second comings and end of the worlds and all these type of things. No, it's not going to be, it doesn't have that strong an influence. But I spoke to my astrologer friends with the Nadi oracles in India, and I said, do we really have anything to particularly worry about with this eclipse? Because, I mean, the internet's been going a bit wild on some of this. And their opinion was, no, this is not significant. It's not an important time. In actual fact, the eclipse can, they tell me, be a positive thing for people, because it's like a symbol of change as well. It's like the death and rebirth of the sun. So it's, in many respects, also an optimistic symbol. Once it's passed, once that death symbolism of it is passed, then we can maybe make some new beginnings. So hopefully we're going to see reforms, not reforms to the level of the French Revolution, I hope, because that ended with an awful lot of terrible things as well, but better things came out of it eventually. But, you know, let's hope that it's a time of transition that will give us some positive results in the future. Jane and I now do our spiritual work for our foundation. All the profits that come from things like our conferences and theatres and workshops and all those exciting things now go into this foundation, which ultimately has the long-term plan of building centres in the UK and maybe around the world one day. But meanwhile, we've been doing a lot of direct spiritual work with it. We've been going out, feeding people in India, giving to the destitute, giving to beggars. We've helped feed schools, helped orphanages, and we've even given cows to older people that have no other form of income. So mediumship can change your life, but it can also help people directly in the world. So go to the links at the end and find out all about what Jane and I are trying to do. And you can do a lot just by sharing these videos on social media. Help us get the word out. Help us to do something really good in this world. Click on this picture of me to subscribe to our channel and see all of our latest videos as soon as they're published. Or click on this next video for more of our stuff.